Drums of War, Chapter 19, Conqueror. In the glorious bulwark of the divine priestess Kababa, Saduri, Warrior Lead 36436589 was absolutely terrified. He had proven his worth, had he not? In the rising places, had he not proven the strongest of children? In the early training facilities, had he not shown great aptitude for warriors? In the service of his betters, had many unworthy not died to his hot plasma? When he was privileged to lead, did he not direct other warriors to satisfaction? He had done these things and more. Ogzur made the stars tremble at his step, himself would smile down upon such deeds, surely. Yet he shook in terror. There were many things wrong with the state of affairs, the least of which was that a warrior of the Exarch Dominion was shaking like a farm serf who had taken more than his allotment of bread. No, there were worse things about the situation than the impossibility, such as the tales of armor-clad demons climbing out of craters made by terrible orbital guns. Who ever heard of men inside of munitions? These Terrans were more than merely worthy. Warrior Lead 36436589 realized that his thoughts had crept to the edge of heresy, and shook his head to rid himself of those thoughts. His warband had been sundered. He and 2 warriors alone survived from their encounter with the sky demons. Indeed, they were formidable, maybe too formidable for one so lowly such as he. The dreadful thought that each of the sky demons might require a highborn or higher to match bubbled up. Tears welled up in his eyes at the thought. There was not enough highborn to match them and their horrifying battle skill. Even he, a warrior lead with a full band, was no match for a single armored demon. Their plasma casters had no effect on the demon, even when they could manage to hit it, as the hot plasma simply splashed off of a force field, such as those on a starship, harmlessly. Warrior Lead 36436589 was still unsure whether the armor of the demons could be scratched at all. Worse, they used kinetic weapons, long thought to be inferior, that tore a glorious warrior armor asunder like paper. Inferior, indeed. Warrior Lead 36436589 and his remaining 2 warriors survived only by pure chance, namely being beneath rubble that had formerly been their fortifications, and had therefore escaped the notice of the Sky Demon. There were worse rumors that the Sky Demons were merely the tip of the spear of the vengeful goddess Republic, that once the Sky Demons had taken their fill of death and fire, behind them came the true thrust. The hope that the Sky Demons were all that could be mustered rivaled this rumor. But Warrior Lead 36436589 had decided that the worst possible result must be the truth. It must be the truth. Therefore, that the vengeful goddess Republic had also tanks, such as the Dominion had, yet ones forged from the cores of the stars themselves. Just as warriors afoot stood no chance against the Sky Demons, and those in tanks stood little chance, so it would be within the garrison, as this glorious bulwark on his conquered planet, yet to receive a holy name from Ogzur, made the stars tremble at his step. Warrior Lead 36436589 gripped the handles of the heavy plasma caster he'd been assigned, and looked over the horizon. He knew that sacrificing Site 17 and Administrative Site 23 had gone silent. He knew that for true. There were rumors in the garrison about more sacrifice centers and administrative sites, but he knew those too for true. He had known training mates with duties there. All knew when a training mate no longer responded. He was dead. Mayhap these were called armor demons, or swarm demons, or both. Either way, Warrior Lead 36436589 foresaw his doom. The horizon shifted. The demons came. Warrior Lead 36436589 suddenly thought of the heretical broadcast promising life to those who cast out their arms and put their hands up in the air. Such a promise must be lies, must it? In a recently conquered system formerly of the clans of Eldra, Priest Lord Tyglak Paxar was conflicted. On the one hand, he had truly perceived the importance of extracting as many resources from the beetles as he could, but on the other, the Terrans had proved more formidable than even his sacred wife had predicted. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And he had wakened the High Priestess Ishor Ixtar, chanting in the voice of foresight, portents of doom and destruction for the scouting groups. The water-worn mammals had appeared by all accounts to be a fat and rich target, too bloated to present any resistance. These portents had foreboded the error in their assessment. The reports of the extraction fleets had confirmed it. Battleships. The Terrans had sent over 24 battleships to contend with his push into the territory of the water-worn mammals. They hadn't even bothered to send in with escorts. Priest High Lord Tyglak Pilksar would have thought it to be an insult, except that these battleships handily defeated his extraction and scout fleets. Those who escaped them reported that these battleships somehow maneuvered as though they were mere escort cruisers, which Priest Lord Tyglak Pilksar was wise enough to perceive as evidence of the Terrans' vast capabilities in shipbuilding. Even still, Priest Lord Tyglak Pilksar had forged a hardened corridor back to the Exarch Dominion by placing his rewarded fleet elements in a defensive formation and having them interdict hyperspace along the route. They had to do this for a day or so at a time as they patrolled, but it would be enough to at least slow the Terrans should they somehow launch an attack at the rear. All of the trouble Priest Lord Tyglak Pilksar's mind had contemplated how to best bring glory to the Emperor and Empress before the eyes of Xur made the stars tremble at his steps. His wife's foresight had made it clear that they contended not with the godless, as they had so often before, but the will of Xur was rebuffed by another will, another divine will. He was struck by inspiration, possibly from Xur, made the stars tremble at his steps. Himself. "Bring to me an unworthy to sacrifice to Xur, and beg High Priestess Ishur Ixtar that her husband would speak with her," he ordered. The Initiate Highborn did as bidden. And soon enough, there was in the groups of his warriors one of the locals pretending at sapience, an unworthy beetle both literally and figuratively. And High Priestess Ishur Ixtar. "What do you require of me, my lord?" she asked. "We will spill now the blood of this unworthy one, and I shall beseech Xur to reveal to you the will with which the Terrans do resist us." "Let it be done," she said, as she spread her arms wide and cast her eyes upward in anticipation. The young unworthy one was dragged before Priest Lord Tyglak Pilksar despite its struggles, and he plunged his musu into its abdomen. He savored its cries of agony as he twisted it and bellowed, "O great Xur, bestow upon mine wife the sight to see the will that opposes thee." "No," she said, "the giant does stand. She is poised with shield and spear, yet her waist there is girt a terrible sword. Behind the giant stand those who give her strength, and their names and faces are shrouded from me. Unworthy, the giant says, I am to look upon her wellsprings. Unworthy, I am to see what moves the Terrans. Yet she knows to me her sister, the bride of Xur, and she bids him to bed unwilling. Hark, for her name is spoken. Death!" The priestess Ishtar Ixal fell silent and collapsed into Priest Lord Ishtar Ixtar's arms. "What have we stirred?" he asked. None, Dare answered. In a field hospital on Clans of Ultra Agriworld 13, Libra 53124390 woke. She had expected to see Xur and have her soul consumed as her final worth. Yet she lived. Elsewhere, how would one explain the burning red sun? Indeed, only the continuation of life could give such mild discomfort, as the consumption of one's soul was said to be agony to those who provided insufficient worth. She did not yet know how or why she lived. The last she could remember, she was climbing the stairs to give service to the Acolyte Highborn. Then there was a terrible noise and much pain. Then merely darkness. Suddenly she recalled the pain to her head and to her legs, and she made to raise her hand to touch her brow. Yet she found herself restrained. Perhaps restrained was not accurate, for upon reflection she realized that with sufficient effort she could accomplish her desire, and thus decided that she found herself encumbered. Upon squinting to thus, it forced her poor vision to reveal to her the truth. She realized that her arms were wrapped in bandages, and reasoned that likewise the fuzzy feeling around her brow was likely more of the same. Yet she had received beatings of much greater mildness than having a building fall upon her, and she struggled to describe how she felt its pain. She was merely uncomfortable. Feeling thus encouraged, she attempted to swing her legs out of the overly soft bed she found herself upon, and found those restrained. Panic welled up within her, and she began to writhe in place until the ghostly pale figure with slanted eyes and void-black hair appeared before her. This figure placed a hand on Laborer 53124390's chest. It was warm and gentle. Laborer 53124390 could almost be reassured by the figure. "Wherefore am I restrained?" she asked. Music, sweet, enchanting music, answered softly. "You were injured badly, and we couldn't repair your legs in just a couple hours. The cast will keep your bones set correctly while the medicine does its work." This figure was a surf server from legend, one of those who escaped the grips of exhaust thirst by having too great worth to consume. To be sure, Inanna stood before Laborer 53124390. She had spoken to Inanna. She had profaned the holy ears of Inanna. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she put back a wail of despair. Surely her worth would never be great enough to be spared now. The Nana sung to her. "What is the matter? Are you in pain? I have come to help." "Apologies, great one. A nameless such as I should not have presumed to profane your ears." "Nameless? Well, that won't do. Neither will calling me great one, or any such silliness. I'm Emily, and if you have no name, I'll have to give you one. How does Sabaki sound?" Sabaki wept with gratitude that a holy Nana could honor her so. "Aboard the Among the Star Tides we rage." Lord Admiral Brexton watched the tactical displays on his holotable intently. The opening salvos had devastated the Exarch forces, meaning that each of the frigates had destroyed an enemy battleship or carrier. Lord Admiral Brexton had seen what the Republic called battleships, and the enemy equivalent designation did not impress him. They were scarcely larger than his own frigate escorts, and very obviously worse armed and armored. These so-called battleships maneuvered even less nimbly than his own dreadnought, what his Republican counterparts might call a battleship, which was more than 7 times the mass of what the Exarch thought was a battleship, apparently. The enemy was of course not polite enough to hang in space and simply wait for the Star Sailors' fleet to pound them into so much interstellar debris. No, they spun up their shields, which they should run at full strength at all times, but hadn't because apparently people dumb enough to attack the Star Sailors and the Republic of Terra and her aligned planets weren't smart enough to think of that. Even still, once they had realized that the Star Sailors were there, and insisting that the Exarch ships pay for their empire's conquest with the hulls and crews, they for some reason objected to the price and started fighting back. Thousands of tiny fighter craft were disgorged by the remaining carriers, hot plasma streaming across space towards the ships, and the formation suddenly became a lot less reminiscent of a static target. Lord Admiral Brexton left the captaining of his ship to his very capable subordinate officer, one Captain Necrick, who was already snapping off orders to the helm, sensors, engineering and gunnery officers. In about 40 seconds, there would be 3 fewer carriers, and any fighter craft that got close afterwards would find themselves the eager recipients of point defense munitions. Instead, Lord Admiral focused on the tactical situation and the advice of his highly capable High XO. "Let the space superiority fighters have their day. Otherwise, it is merely a matter of chance whether a bomber gets through our point defenses and weakens our shields, or more likely does so to one of you. Those frigates not already engaged with cruisers launch fighters," Admiral Brexton ordered. "Aye, Lord Admiral," came the reply from his captains. "Sir, I've identified the command ship," Marvin the Marvel informed him. "Can we launch a vengeful Vanguard safely?" "Aye, sir." "In approximately 30.8400 seconds, the Digitan replied. "Make it so," Lord Admiral Brexton ordered. "Prioritize destroying these ships," Marvin the Marvel said as 7 icons lit up. "You heard the man," he said to the bridge crew. "Let us remind them that they should have never made ashes of the Among the Star Tides we sing. For them her ashes rose, the Among the Star Tides we rage." "Aye, sir," came the lieutenant of the Terran Vengeful Vanguard over the comms. "We remember the sing, we remember the sing," sounded the Among the Star Tides we rage from bulkhead to bulkhead, from deck to deck, and her guns did roar. End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.